That's funny. That Leo
Oh,
King guy,
oh,
he's
we're. I think we're live. Let's see. Yes, we're live.
oh yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Hi. So it's
Hello,
like,
everyone.
okay.
Always checking. This is Eric Nielsen and Danny Picard. I think we're live. We're live. Yay.
We're
This
live.
thing always this thing always tricks you because it makes you think that you're live. But no, it makes you think that you're not live, and then you realize that you've been to everybody.
Too
Um,
funny.
yeah, good. So, so just to introduce myself, Eric Nielsen, I'm calling myself an inner compass coach, which is a way to describe the process of helping a person get in tune with what their spirit is saying in their life and letting that voice inform how they move through the relationships, how they move through the challenges that life presents them, and which is a very useful skill in times of great change and paradigm shift when the landscape that you used to know and you had well-defined patterns to navigate suddenly breaks up like chunks of ice and floats out into the ocean, and suddenly you have to find new ways to navigate. So that's a little bit of what I do. And I've got with me Danny Picard, who is one of my favorite co-wizards. And Danny,
Yay.
how would you describe yourself in 120 words or less?
Well, one should not try to limit the no. Um, you know what's fascinating is that understanding that every part of my life expands and shifts into a different interest. So I'm always kind of evolving, but what I really love doing is connecting the science and spirit, and how do we apply that to help people move into the next level of their lives and the next level of happiness. And
Mm-hmm.
but I really like bringing in the science, the epigenetics, Bruce Lipton stuff, and with the sorcery and the having it all combine. And because the goal is joy. How do we get there? And how do we get there in our bodies authentically?
Yeah, I agree.
Is that what you asked?
I was I was just dealing with the stream for a second. It's like
Oh,
tuning
no
into spirit,
problem.
making sure that your
is,
data is flowing.
is there a
I
way?
was,
Is there a way that I can share the video?
yeah, yeah. I shared it on your page, so it should be.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
Um, but you can always
Is
share
my
it.
okay?
You can share it to your Facebook page. If
Yay.
if
Okay, cool.
if anybody's out there, I think it's a little. The internet's been very quiet today. It's funny. It was so loud. Everyone was just buzzy talking yesterday, but today it's been a little bit quiet. But if anyone can hear us, just hit the wow face just to know that we're coming in loud and clear. We're connecting across an ocean and two continents, so sometimes making sure the bits and bytes get to the right place can be a bit of a
Oh, yeah.
challenge.
That's right. So where in Greece are you? You're in Greece and I'm in Sedona. There's some
I'm in
distance there.
I'm in Thessaloniki, Greece, which is like if Greece has all these weird little fingers, and then it has a part up here, and these are all the islands, and here's Crete down here, and I'm like right here, right in the little
Oh,
crook.
okay.
And this is kind of the area where Alexander ruled his giant Macedonian empire from. Like this, it's in all in the neighborhood. So
Crazy.
it's a cool place. It's like it's a it's a place where I mean, I've grown up when I lived in San Francisco. It was pretty amazing to walk around the city and look at, oh, this is a building from 1850, and this building's been around for 1720. In this city, it's like, okay, this building is like 200 AD, and this marketplace is like 1 BC, and then there's this one little neighborhood. There's a couple of neighborhoods that are built around this giant mound, and the mound
Uh-huh.
like 5,000-year-old ruins, and people have just parked their house up against the mound and have grown little like carrot patches around these 5,000-year-old tombs. It's just totally integrated, totally integrated.
That's wow, what a trip.
It's fun for me because I like to treasure hunt. So it's
Awesome.
endless
I
treasure
selfishly
hunting.
Hey, right. I selfishly want you to come back and play. So
Well, now that I'm on lockdown and the only treasures are what I can find behind the couch, your Sedona mountaintop exploration looks pretty groovy right now, gotta say.
it's it's been amazing out here. The governor of Arizona just finally put the lockdown down, but Sedona's kind of its
Yeah,
own place. There's a lot of people who are the high spirit nature and whatnot, and all
yeah,
of them are pretty mindful of mindfulness and all that stuff. So you'll still see
yeah.
people driving around. There's a lot of people that are coming here as like, kind of like a refuge. Um,
Really?
yeah, they are. Just people not wanting to be in Phoenix, LA, or Chicago. So they're like sneaking out and coming here. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Uh,
people who are in the little, I mean, that kind of happened here too. You've got like Athens and the big cities, well, two big cities, and everyone's looking around the big city thinking this is the worst place to be in zombie apocalypse.
Totally.
Let's go to let's go to the mountaintop villages, but then the mountaintop villages are full of little old grandmas and no hospitals, and so it's such
Right.
a massive thing for a population on the move to
Yeah.
do. But the instinct, I mean, the instinct to like, after watching so many zombie movies, the instinct is like get high, get up in the woods, go.
Right. Well, yeah,
We're all
I
trained.
try to go on a new hike every other day.
Yeah,
And like tomorrow I'm going with my friend Ruben to Cathedral. I'm taking him to Cathedral Rock. He's never been.
yeah,
So we're just going to be sitting in the divine feminine energies, and it's incredible out there.
mm,
And we were up there, and there's some gals who I met, and they were out from Denver, and they're like, yeah, we're in the healthcare industry anyway, so we're going to get it, so we may as well be here too. you know
uh,
but
yeah,
so it's interesting seeing and hearing different people's takes on things. And I'm, for the most part, kind of in the most content, happy space that I've been in a
yeah,
very long time. So I'm watching a lot of things kind of dissolve away, but then it's leaving me with the inner strength and the inner knowingness and the thoughts and the beliefs that I've been practicing for a long time have
yeah,
kind of developed into this really beautiful. It's almost like the ropes to my hot air balloon
yeah.
starting to rise up, and it's just this remarkable feeling of what's going on right now. And it's kind of a trip because logically with the eyes you go, wait, wait, and then your heart's just like, oh, like that chick in Fifth Element.
And the person next to you is like, "Did you hear that?
Like, who the hell is
Is
that
there a
guy?
is there a tea kettle on?"
Right. Well, I was in
No,
the
it's just,
whole I was in I was at Whole Foods. And I noticed, like, they had a lot of everything still, and except
mhm.
the kombucha cooler. So I just started laughing so loud, and everybody in the store looks at me like I'm some crazy person. And for you to stand out like you're some crazy person in Sedona is it
A lot of
requires a
work, huh?
lot of work, but it was pretty amazing. So yeah, but
That's
it's fascinating.
that's the
Oh, sorry,
first
go ahead.
that's the first breakdown of society. The flow of kombucha stops.
The flow,
I
yeah.
bet that could be a whole NPR episode on why kombucha is the first thing to stop flowing in a in a pandemic.
Absolutely. Kombucha versus toilet paper. What's your
Yeah,
online apocalypse tool?
there was some just last week, some hippie was like clutching them all to his chest, like I'm gonna survive this. With like 12
It's like,
bottles
I don't
of
know.
ginger fizz kombucha.
Right. I mean, to me, it's obvious not enough people played Zelda. So, like, you know what I mean? So, but it's so
I don't
fascinating.
get that.
Oh, just because you got to go
Help me with
collect
that.
all the things. What?
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
I wasn't a big Zelda fan, but at least I played a little bit. But yeah, so but it's when when I'm taking people through their process with the embodiment, the coaching stuff, we come to this space where we have to kind of a lot of times their dreams have been so wanting to go in this direction, but they found that they're so strapped by the jobs they don't hate, or the situations that they don't, or that they hate, and the situations they don't like. And what I was telling somebody the other day, it's almost like everybody who's been working those jobs for such a long time and thinking all the thoughts about, God, I wish I wasn't here. God, I wish I wasn't here. God, I wish I wasn't here. It's like for a lot of people. And so, of course, like, the surroundings kind of start dissolving. But then I'm kind of feeling, well, for me, I'm noticing that people are, pulling through it a little bit easier. And they're starting to realize that, oh, I have all this open availability to be me. How can I be me in the best way? And then how can, so it's like, trying to show people that when we really want a dream or to achieve something that's more in alignment with your heart, like, this is a massive opportunity for people to start manifesting and creating, tapping into the feelings that they want to, or that they prefer to feel while they're at a job, rather than just going into the repetition of, I need to suffer and do something that I don't like,
Right.
So it's, in the physics level, everything's expanding. And, I think that for me, I have to be at complete peace with knowing that things aren't going back the way they were. I'm pretty certain of that.
Yeah.
And, if that's the case, what can we do to make everything become more awesomer? And how do we learn to expand with the expansion? And how do we let go of those things that aren't expanding? Or those thoughts that are going, you're a nasty jerk, you don't deserve anything. And, what I was telling you this morning before we got on was, I made a hypnotherapy session because I really wanted to kind of up my levels of my own self-worth. And one of the things I historically do not do, and it's kind of weird, but it makes a lot of sense, is that I don't allow myself to feel the joy or understand the contributions
Mm-hmm.
that I bring into another person's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the last few years, like, I kind of started to get depleted. And I made this session about, like, just look at how you're contributing to making this world a better place. And this is what made you want to come here to begin with. And this is what, and so I've just had, like, I feel so much more solid in talking right now than I felt in a long time, because there's no distractions of other people's voices. It's almost like it just, like, completely just like took a big garden hose to my dirty ass windshield and was like, shh. And now my heart's like this big old floofy of gelatin, gay gelatin.
I think our stream got a little slow there for a second.
Okay. During the unicorn gay gelatin bit.
You said unicorn gay gelatin.
Well, that's what happens when your heart chakra is too powerful, Eric. It slows the electrics.
Tea kettle? It's only the tea kettle on. Could you turn your heart chakra down a little bit? It's
Sorry. Hold on. Let me think about. I can't. Sorry, I've entered into the fifth dimension. No going back.
I left last May. The 6th.
Screw celery juicing. I just put it in my butt. Let's just like bypass the whole situation. Are we allowed to say that? It's your show.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it's there's so much awesomeness in the heart. And I love watching people are sharing more about who they like truly are.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch people going, wait, how can I share my hobby? It's kind of like going back into like the innocence of elementary school of like,
Yeah.
And that was like one of the first things that I ever thought about with this whole thing. It's like how apparently programmed everybody is because, when we were kids, if you got 2-3 weeks off a month or 2 off of work, you're playing.
Oh yeah.
You're out having fun. But
when people get this kind of time off, for those of us who do get some time off, they often they have it all pre-planned, and they pre-plan it from they often pre-plan it from the place of being fully occupied energetically with their job. So the thing that a lot of people will do when they go on vacation is a compensation for what it feels like to have the rest of their time occupied by work or being kind of constrained inside of a routine. And
absolutely,
this gave us this weird mix of no routine and you can't go anywhere. So suddenly there was no plan, there was nothing pre-programmed, there was no agenda.
Totally.
It just left.
Totally.
You just the carpet on your floor and you're just sitting there like, okay, what now? It also feels like
true.
the mask.
And, that no routine. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, the last year and a half in Portland, I was basically at home with no routine, and I was miserable out of my mind. And now that this is going on, I'm like, oh, I got this. This is great. At least now I'm where I want to be. And like, oh, this is good. But it was like interesting how everything's kind of been like a little training for this moment in time. It's been fascinating.
The last 6 months, like the last 6 months makes complete sense now, looking back. 2020, I love that. 2020, looking back,
right?
Because I had all these ideas for classes. Like I was putting together something for rapid paradigm shift, and while I was putting it together, I was thinking, no one's thinking about rapid paradigm shift right now. Like why do I feel like I need to put this together? Like I was feeling like it was just going to fall flat, and then and then all of a sudden, and also I was kind of constrained to the house, not constrained to the house, but I was disconnected from my community. I felt like I was the only one of my friends at the far reaches of Greece, and so I had to learn how to spend time with myself, and it wasn't easy the first few months. But now that we're here, it's fun because everyone else is online too now. I've been across the internet. Now everyone's available all of a sudden.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
All day, anytime. And it's, at first I had to be very careful. I had a lot of people reaching out to me that typically wouldn't reach out. Yeah. And I had to be extremely discerning about, are you reaching out because you're in a fear space? Are you reaching out? So, and I wasn't super protective with my own space yet. So like I had to kind of be very discerning because I didn't want, people were sending me messages saying, I hope you're doing okay. And so I'm like, okay, they're probably not doing okay. Like, I should probably ask, but, I had to make sure that I was like, making sure that I was okay first. And that's the big lesson in all this, is that everybody kind of has to make sure that you're doing okay first, which is not the way that, we've kind of been privileged into being able to focus on everybody else's crap. And by doing this is kind of like reprioritizing, if you're going to be happy, healthy, and well, you need to focus on you and your family. And then if you have room, you can do the other stuff. But, it's been fascinating to watch all of it. all of it, you know. And you know, I like I said, I'm seeing people adjust well, but I also a lot.
Oh,
So what I see is a little bit different than what most people see. You know, I
okay.
don't really
Repeat
subscribe
your.
to the need to
Can you?
I see I meditate a lot, so I typically see things that other people do not see.
Yeah.
Things that I resonate with are things that other people do not. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I'm wrong or you're wrong. It means that with my level of attention to self-care and wellness, that's and being in my heart and actively going into my heart and actively activating my heart and finding new ways, I align with a much more different um, level of seeing and understanding things than I'd say
Mhm.
than I would than if I were to be the same person if I was drinking like I used to religiously nonstop and all the cocaine and addictions, which I used to do. So but it was a choice. Like I didn't want to do that anymore because I knew that if I took care of myself in new ways, that I can create and live through a world through the lenses of seeing what more beauty is like and seeing what more joy is like and seeing what like I wake up in the morning giggling now. I live by myself. If anybody was here they would judge me, you know. But uh you know I I want to, it's always been a dream of mine to, and actually this is a part of why I'm here, because I wanted to set up a nice little homey foundation. And then I want to travel to all the sacred sites around the world and share with people what I see through my eyes, through my voice, and the experiences that I see. You know, because we get a lot of people that share what they see, the doom and gloom and fear, blah, 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 blah. And, I get it. I used to be there, and it's taken a lot of work to get here. But, this is what brings me so much joy, and that's what I want to do. So therefore I'm going to do it, and so we all have different variances and pardon me, what, for such a long time I've been talking about the importance of energetic boundaries, because if you're somebody who's naturally joyful and optimistic, but you're in a family or a housing situation where there's people that just really, I'm a realist, okay, people or whatever, um, it's um, it's very easy to take on the negativity of other people, especially if you don't have those energetic boundaries. But we don't really learn how to develop energetic boundaries, and that's been one of the main important things of what I've done for myself, and I've had to, as being such an energetically sensitive person. Like when these people are reaching out and going, oh, I hope you're doing okay, can we talk sometime? And my brain goes, warning, warning, warning. It doesn't go, ooh, client. I go,
Yeah.
warning, warning, protect myself, shield, you know.
Yeah.
But
Is it? Is that?
because of that, that's what led me into the addictions and all that stuff, you know.
Okay. You mean not being able to? Well, I guess protect. Not being able to safeguard your energies. Is that kind of that? Are you saying that this kind of creates a foundation for you to do what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, because what I do on a psychic level unknowingly is take on the the emotions, and that's a different thing. It's like I would, not the behaviors, but I would actually take on the emotions of other people.
Okay.
And from as I would adopt those as my own, I would start creating behaviors based on these different things that weren't actually mine. So I've
Yeah.
had to move myself into a deep, deep state of clarity and create boundaries. And that's, with the hypnotherapy and whatnot. And uh, many of the other tools, I had to realize that, it came to a realization that a lot of the shame and guilt that I experienced in life was actually um, me kind of learning that in the womb from my twin brother. And so, he passed away 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer. And so now I'm becoming even more of me because I'm like an actual individual. But, I totally broke down and lost it the other day because I had this realization and I was like, oh my gosh, that wasn't my shit. Like, so I've been, this last week has just been profound in the way that I've grown and become more present, and just the, like I'm waking up in the morning and getting visions of me as a sorcerer. I'm like, oh, this is cool. We just gotta, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like Doctor Strange meets Merlin meets, I'm like, what the hell? This is cool though. Is this a thing? And because it's kind of only natural to go, oh wait, or I've always had a fear of rejection, for a very long time. And I mentioned to you this too, and then you said I should try moving to the desert. um, uh, but in terms of the fear of rejection and coming up with having to, it's like coming out of the closet again and again and again and again and again until we dissolve that fear. But even holding back my magic because of what I'd fear other people would judge. It's like an instant automatic subconscious protection. That, oh, if I share too much of how magical I am, people are going to try to bring me down, and people are going to try to shoot BB pellets at my balloon, and
Yeah.
Because there's a belief out there. Oh, what's that?
I said that's usually how you're doing it right.
Right. Well, even this morning I posted this thing on Facebook, and because I read this thing, and I'm just like, oh my God, it like pains me how crazy distorted messages can be with spiritualism and all that stuff. And I finally I wrote this big long thing about being discerning and tapping into your intuitions and feeling what's right and paying attention to, like, if it's true, it feels good, and so that's how I know that the rejection is not true, so therefore it's not mine. It's only something I was taught and learned. But since that doesn't feel true, what does feel true to me? Okay, that I'm magical, and I'm actually probably more safe than I've ever been.
Yeah.
We forget. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I remember looking at these amazing diagrams of reading some of Barbara Brennan's books, and she talked about the energetic centers in our bodies, or the chakras, as being almost like a digestion point where we're taking in the surrounding field energy and we're digesting it and we're transforming it and working with it. And it was kind of an odd concept, but it really makes sense in what you're talking about here, in that there's a realm of frequencies outside of your own personal bubble that are informing you what's happening, what things mean, what you mean, who you are, and in some ways we can be fed by that. Like, there's a lot of information in the field around us. In trying to connect with anything or anybody, we're receiving their information, we're digesting it through our energetic body, we're taking it in. And
Right.
there's this translation process that you go through where, much like your body, you poop things out. Your body doesn't use. Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, no wonder you don't have a toilet. But your body it uses some of what it takes in. But
Yeah.
if you eat a big old bag of potato chips, you eat a bag of those orange cheese puffs, your body may not use all of those materials. Some of that stuff's
Right.
probably going to go through you. Or and I think that energetically we are doing something similar. We're taking in this energy. There's energy outside of us, but if we have a well-tuned system, like you said, discernment, there's an ability to notice which minerals, which pieces of information which concepts, which meanings nourish us and are useful to our system, and which ones just kind of need to be excreted with the excess. You know, it's like, okay, like that's just gonna run through me, pot of Texas chili.
Totally. And you know what's beautiful, and one of the things that I've come to realize in the last year and a half, and this journey where I was processing so much guilt, and I was like, why am I processing so much guilt? It's really interesting. But I realized, what's that? Have I ever
Because you're
talked to you
guilty.
about this? This is going to blow your mind. This is going to blow your mind. So I received all this information. I realized, I'm like, so the continuation of trial and error and learn by growth and evolution, we've been doing this lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes over and over and over again. So, but during the fall of Atlantis, when Atlantis fell through and descended from the mind, from the heart to the mind, the core wound that became from that was guilt. And so we've actually been living in a world that's quite been constructed from guilt. And so that's why, as we're returning back into the heart and letting go of these mental constructs, it's piecing it all together, but all these microcosms and macrocosm, and it's absolutely fascinating and brilliant. So it's like, if we, all the trial and error and the return to truth. And so what's beautiful is things like this in the sacred geometries keep those templates of some beautiful man's mom. No, Eric, I told you I'd watch over it, and I've been watching over it. As you can see, it's still here. It's actually
responsible for us having a 2.8 megabit per second connection, I think. It's holding up the dimensional internet for
I know. Well, we can just tell everybody that when you have super high chakra energy, it dampens the electromagnetic fields of the communications.
What it does. I when I first started doing spiritual work, my computer, all my electric equipment started to zap out after I got my first and second Reiki attunement. And I had one of my dear friends, Jonna Goldenflame, she said, "Oh, you need to set your spiritual preferences." I'm like, what? What are spiritual preferences? And she said, you open up your preference panel, and then you go down the preferences. You say, let's see, my electric field shorts out electrical equipment. Switch that to off. Like, oh, I have an option. Okay. I thought, oh, well, because part of me thought it was delicious that I was having these external manifestations of my field in a very obvious electrical kind of shocking way. And then I realized, oh, well, that was fun when I needed it to tell me something. And now that I get it, I'm electric. I'd like to have my laptop work. Thank you, universe. Thank you.
Should we tell? Oh, I like how I just became clear when you said that.
So I want to go back. You're talking a lot about Atlantis. I've been studying Atlantis, but maybe from the Plato's writing and the Solon aspect. Where this sort of mythology of Atlantis, where is it? Give me some context for it.
Okay, so a lot of this, like after I went to Egypt, like just a lot of memories of, Thoth, Thoth the Atlantean, who basically exiled to Egypt and created the pyramids, and to redevelop or develop a synthesized version of the Christ grids to allow the heart-centered consciousness to exist upon the planet. So now Atlantis, on the spiritual aspect, Atlantis was there's like two different, there's a couple of different theories that people subscribe to. So I kind of subscribe to, I've looked at this one and I'm like, some of that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And then like having gone to Egypt, I'm like, oh, crazy. So Atlantis long ago was a very sophisticated, heart-centered civilization, very amazing technologies and whatnot. And they basically kind of went, yeah, we're kind of really good for our britches. And Thoth was an Atlantean priest, and but there's an aspect of their energetic grids that weren't fully um, owned, so to speak. And I'm going to use that word for a reason. Um, and what happened was a negative influence came in, and just like a virus, caused a dissension or
Okay.
a defragmentation. Okay. So, but over that time period, what had happened was that because they let their guards down, because they let down those energetic boundaries, basically the heart descended into the mind. And then we went over 30,000 years of limitation and darkness and mind based constructs. So, Thoth creating the pyramids to recreate or try to recreate all that aspect. Thoth closely linked to Metatron and Hermes. Okay,
Mhm.
we are light first and foremost, and so it's within that we shall return into the heart and to discover that truth of our heart as we all evolve there through trial and error over and over and over again. So people say, no, this is a big, human experiment, but there's that, there's, some, people subscribe to whatever you want. But,
Yeah.
what I wrote this morning is that, there's so many stories and distillations and different fragmentations of versions, and there's as many versions as you have, perceptions of anything. And so what returns us back to that truth in essence is the sacred geometry, the templates of divine architecture. So we can be very grateful to have this, because if we didn't, we'd probably not know, we wouldn't have a crumb trail to follow. We wouldn't have an aspect of, because this is found within physics, it's found within all of nature. There's a code that is completely repetitive and it repatterns itself. And so, but it's also
You would
found and most observed in the heart.
you would not believe how many uh, seeds of life like behind you. I found the inner ring. I found them. I've probably found like 20 across 1,000-year-old Byzantine churches
Really?
all over Greece.
I love
There's
it.
one in Mistras. There's one little convent, like a monastery convent complex that's still running with little nuns collecting roses and lots of cats, and they're everywhere. I've just seen them. I've been trying to take pictures of them and remember where I have seen them, because I've seen so
Yeah.
many. I can't even remember them all. But I mean, we're talking about a lot, and I'm wondering, because I mean, it's a beautiful mythology, but the way my brain works, I want to find context. So
Mm.
where this mythology of Atlantis that's got this rich moral story to it, is this something that you're channeling, or is this something that you're referencing, like the Emerald Tablet? I noticed you did something on the Emerald Tablets
Mhm.
the other day. Is this from Hermetic mysticism? Is this from Edgar Casey? Like, where are you pulling these details from?
Through raising my own frequency. So it's
Okay,
like what we were
everything
saying,
there.
like what we were saying earlier is, so when you're able to access more of that heart-centered consciousness, it accesses and you're able to access more and more information.
Yeah,
So, as I do more work on my heart and more work on myself, I remove the oogly boogly and light is integrated. Okay, so with a lot of people channel.
yeah,
I don't actively channel. That's never really been a thing. I've always just
yeah,
had all this information, but I'm also a person that does 2 hours of healing work on myself every day, or two
yeah,
hours of like self-expansion work, and I've been doing that religiously and meditating for 23 years. So it's
yeah. People
Joe
call it
Dispenza. What's that?
claircognizance.
Absolutely. And Joe Dispenza talks about when you go into the heart, he talks about the quantum human. And it's really fascinating to have all these scientist guys, bringing out this information because of, what the thing that I call the epic human is, it's really kind of fascinating. And it's like, oh, okay. So what I'm finding is that by going further and deeper into my heart, I can raise my frequency so high so I can actually see how so much is pieced together. Even I'm getting to a state where it's even in like a dimensional space. Like I'm able to realize, that the amount of dimensions that are here are just infinite, and the only things that get in our way from being able to see more are those thought programs, because we live in our brain, and a lot of people think the brain is the power. So, I've been testing the other route. It's like, well, how powerful can we be in our hearts? And so it's almost like I have access to the Akashics, but it's even deeper, and it's really interesting. And so it's even more interesting being in Sedona here, because I just feel like I'm embraced, like I'm in the womb here. And where before, 5 years ago, when I first came to visit, it was like I couldn't stay in town for more than 2 hours because the energy was so intense. And now it's like I don't want to leave. But
it's cosmic broadband.
Yeah, no, right. But it's, everybody is seeing life through their own different timelines and their own different perceptions of where they're at. And nobody's better than another person. It's just that people prioritize differently. And I learned, after, 15 years of addictions and whatnot, that I'm not allowed to like prioritize addictions anymore. And so, but yeah, so it's everybody has these beautiful different perceptions, and we can tap into different things, and different people have different things, and different things are beautiful because everything's a piece of the puzzle.
I love that you're talking about Atlantis, because I've been kind of chasing it this year in Greece, but maybe more from a historical perspective, reading Plato and trying to track the story that Plato got was from Solon, who was a very famous, who's called Solon the lawgiver, and he was basically one of the people that reorganized Athenian politics. He made the government and the political body of Athens a more human-centered structure, if that makes sense.
Right.
He was also a big epic poet, and after he reorganized everything, and it would almost be like Bernie Sanders coming in and completely reorganizing the government, and then the moment all the laws had been set in place, he peace outs and leaves the country for 10 years so that no one can call him back to change it. Solon went on this 10-year voyage to Egypt, kind of like you had in your trip, and he goes to all of these Egyptian temples, and the temples he met, I can't remember the name of the town, the city, but he met these Egyptian priests who had all these stories, and they kind of laughed at Solon. He's Greek. They're like, oh, you're such a new country, you're such a new civilization, kind of like maybe Greeks would laugh at us, the Americans, for being like such a young country,
right.
Well, I mean, not that Greece is not an older country than us, but an older culture than us. And so Solon goes and he hears from these priests, and the priests are telling him stories about the Grecian mainland being deluged and recovered from the water many times over. And that Solon started to notice that some of the names for the Egyptian cities were also shared names for Greek words and Greek cities. And the Egyptians started to transmit this story of Atlantis to Solon. So Solon has a great 10-year vacation. You can imagine, he's like a brilliant man, a brilliant, like well-connected, outside the box thinker, and he is wandering through Egypt, the land of old stories, and you can imagine what someone could access at the time. Like we have these dusty, broken up pieces. You can imagine 2,500 years ago, you would have some maybe more intact storylines, you know.
Right.
And he comes back, and he's got all these stories, and he starts to write down the stories of Atlantis, but Greece is in such a mess, or Athens is in such a mess, that he has to go back into government. And it's kind of like when one brilliant person only has you can only do so much in one day. You know, if a brilliant person, maybe if he puts his mind to a paintbrush and canvas, he could paint a masterpiece. But instead, he's writing, so he writes a masterpiece. There's the potentiality for the painting and the book, but he could only do one at a time. So Solon could have written another Odyssey, but about Atlantis, but instead he had to go back into politics and organize Athenian society. But he told stories to Plato, or the stories got to Plato, and then Plato is telling a story. You know, it's like a passed on story of Solon, and that's where Plato got his stories of Atlantis. So I've been kind of very fascinated in following those bits and pieces that Plato left us.
It's so fascinating, and just in general, because it's like so. You know, there's those different pieces. There's also pieces of, you know, Leonardo da Vinci was, you know, incarnation of Saint Germain, and where, you know, also incarnated of, you know, Merlin, but also like, you know, Saint Germain and Metatron, you know, Archangel Metatron, the scribe of all scribes and the keeper of the Akash, and, you know, but also linked right next to, you know, Thoth, Hermes of, have you looked into Hermes
Well,
and all that stuff?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's kind of different layers of Hermes.
Right. And it seems like there's so many different layers, but what's also fascinating is like, it's kind of like we're noticing like the different layers of different people's perceptions based on where they were as well. Or it's, you know, I don't know, that's kind of, it's fascinating.
Well, it kind of depends on whose mythology you're pulling from. Like
Totally.
like in Greece, what I've noticed is, but when I first learned Greek mythology in high school, it came in a book. It was kind of like the way that we think of the Bible. We get the Bible, and it's like one volume, you know. Like it's always been this perfectly collated manual, when really it was a bunch of manuscripts and like rolls of parchment that were kept, you know, hundreds of miles away from each other. And someone at one point was like, let's get all this stuff together and put it into a book. And so the same is true for Greek mythology. Like I thought this whole pantheon of Greek gods just arrived ready made, you know, put together, like, here you go, here's your 12 gods, whatever. Really, they in Greece, they have a very geographical, you know, like Zeus isn't just all over Greece. It's like, no, Zeus landed at a particular beach in Crete, and he was born in a particular cave in Crete, and then he landed in a particular beach, you know, on the mainland of Greece. And Dionysian cults, you know, they came from the north and came in, and so you get this feeling like different nomadic populations would have their own little cults, and as these people started to cross paths with each other, their ideas started to merge, and they started to share these different concepts with each other. And so like Hermes could be a very local idea at one point in time, but then he definitely got picked in Hermetic mysticism. And I know a little bit about Hermetic mysticism, a little bit about the Kabbalah, in that he becomes merged with the concept of Thoth. He also becomes merged with the concept of many of these kind of, in Egypt he's the scribe, but the scribe is someone who transmits information, you know, the great information transmitter. And I've heard but those things are so fascinating for my mind. When I hear them, I'm like, oh, like, wow, that sounds amazing. But there's the Capricorn in me wants to nail it down to, did we just
Totally.
make this up, or does this come from a book, or who told you this?
Totally.
But
This is totally. Well, there's so many things that, like, this is, I I know that, like, I was able to, you know, access a lot of information a long time ago, and it was really important to me that the information that I was accessing was accurate through my eyes. And
yeah,
so that's what really led into a lot of the sobriety and,
yeah,
wellness. Cause it's like, wait, I want to know that, you know, like, I drink coffee, and not that I get hard on myself for it, but I go, I wonder if my truth or my perception may be a little bit different if I didn't drink coffee.
mine definitely is different. Definitely.
Right. But now it's to the point where it's almost like coffee doesn't like it's just kind of the flavor. So I'm like, I wonder if it's actually 10 times easier to quit drinking coffee than I've actually ever experienced it to be. Maybe
Yeah.
I should drink, maybe I should stop drinking coffee. But I've been doing it for such a long time, my body would go, oh wait, there's a lactic thing. Warning, warning, warning. So that's a whole nother topic.
It's
But
it, we haven't even touched the topic we put on the website, um, which was supposed to
oh.
be letting go of things to make room for the new. But we just
I
talked
know.
about
So,
Atlantis.
we're just
The
all
title of this
catching.
video was our homework was to talk about this, but instead we just talked about Atlantis.
Is
I think
anybody watching?
I don't know if I even posted this correctly, but
I know it
it,
seems that.
that, that's how this works. It's like sometimes it works brilliantly, and then sometimes you're like,
Yeah,
I don't. We're learning.
we're learning.
I think
What?
this what this brings up
Well,
for me is a little bit of. Go ahead.
oh, I'm just wondering what the Schumann resonance is doing. I know it's boring.
Okay.
Well, because I'm watching our
Where do you
conversation go to all these different places, but I think it's
where do
just
you
because.
find?
Where
Is
do we
there
find
like
what?
www? Is there like www.schumannresonance.live.com, or where do you find the Schumann resonance?
Um, CNN. Don't know. Just kidding. Um, this yeah. Disclosurenews.it, space
Oh, okay.
weather, space weather. That's another thing. Like, I've had to this. I mean, space weather
Hi,
news.
Trish. Hi, Trish.
Bye, Trish. Whoever. Um, yeah, the Space Weather News has it as well. And that's actually a very, very good one because it shows, like, all about the auroras and all the other things that are coming in.
No,
But,
no,
I
I do
went through
watch
a,
space.
what's that?
I watch space weather religiously because I have found I've kind of calibrated. There are certain events that occur with the sun that seem to be calibrated with things that I feel in my body. Like
Totally.
whenever there's coronal a coronal mass ejection, usually the day the coronal mass ejection happens, I don't want to move. Like my brain is like down to 20%. And then
Mm.
it takes about 3 days for that to get to the earth. And from the day it starts to the day it ends and gets to earth, I'm so sluggish. Like it's like my brain is being interfered with. And then the moment it's done, I have all this energy. I have all these ideas. Like
Mm.
I I I mean, in my personal mythology, I feel like I'm getting a download. That all life all life is spun up from the information in the sun. Like like like
Yeah.
life has taken solar energy and created all of these fantastical DNA structures and solar powered. So why wouldn't we get information from the sun on a daily basis? Like if the sun made all this possible,
Right.
feel it at a human level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's, ba, 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 ba. the YouTube guys, the Suspicious Observers. I was watching them for a little while, but then I was like, oh, they're kind of negative, or they just kind of like that dark, eyes open, be safe, so. But I love looking at how all of these things affect ourselves. So it's like, if we can know that the solar activity can affect us emotionally,
Yeah.
well, of course, so can gluten, but also, like, with the with also our own psychology develops
Yeah.
ways of producing behaviors and different triggers and whatnot. So a person who's been through so much trauma is going to perceive life much differently until they learn how to heal and resolve, like, that old victimization wound, or that wound of changing that perception of, okay, cool, I'm going to be doing something new now. And there's so many different aspects. So within all this stuff, it's like, a big part of the healing with, what I've been doing with myself is, I want to keep getting down to the nitty gritty of, beyond the wounding, beyond, what's in the healed individual of, what's the potential of being in the heart without the mind being, completely enacted because of old wounding. I used to talk about being an empath, but then I realized that being an empath was actually just a symptom of a deep, deep wound that was not resolved. And I have a feeling that that was deeply coexisting to that aspect of the fear of rejection, in a way, is that we're not good enough, or that whole aspect, that lineage of guilt, you're not good enough, to where the person is actually, like, kind of absorbing somebody else's, I've taken it, like, really deep. So I took that one on a real deep thing, but um, so I kept going, okay, what is it like to be fully accepting of myself, and within my own heart, and without the judgment or need of judgment to others, to protect me, because there's a big primal thing, and that is that it's like, well, to know that you fit in is it's like a, not a safety mechanism, a survival thing. Like, back in
Oh
the
yeah.
days, is like a primal, like, you need to fit
Yeah.
in, or else you're outcast and you're gonna die. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I
The
don't.
social, the socialization level of the brain is it's like uh, a key survival moment for mammals, to
Mhm.
think as a group, to act as a group, and to, genetically, we have this built-in hardware. We have a whole nervous system keyed for it, and so it's clear the functions here for, the function, like, when it functions well, it can be amazing what it
Yeah.
allows us to uplink to, the heart linking to each other. It seems a little bit like what you're describing is almost connecting to others as a compensation, or as a strategy to save yourself from judgment, or save yourself. I think sometimes people say, well, if I act this way, I won't be hurt. If I act this way, I'll be a good
Mhm.
person. It's really not so clear I'm a good person. and
Absolutely.
uh and sometimes people connect that way. And it's sweet, because people do want to be um people do want to have compassion. They do want to, they do want to help people. They are uplifters. They do want to be helpful
Mhm.
people. But there's also, wound into that energy, is a storyline of not enoughness, or I have to ness, which is acting from a compulsion, or
Yeah.
from the fear of not being enough, or fear of what will happen if I don't do it.
Mhm.
So sometimes people have to detox from being empathic, like, because the empathy has been wound up with the other energies, like a lovely note constantly playing with a terrible note at the same time, that they have to
Yeah.
turn it all off for a minute, so that all that stuff isn't wiring together quite as much. Like, you probably often see that people who are empathic or a lot, or habitually offering their empathy or offering their support,
Giving.
sometimes have
Yeah.
constant giving, sometimes have to slow that down to rebalance it and to kind of get it to be a more clear signal in their system.
Completely. Well, and the more we give, it like places the dependency on others. If it is from a perspective, or I need to be accepted type of place, but as you give more to these different situations, it actually it like takes away from your ability to find your own inner self-worth. So and so I've been really tying this whole self-worth, empath, fear of rejection thing together, and really getting down to the nitty-gritty, because I want to be done, but also, like, how much more refined energetically could I be if I'm not needing, if I know that I am safe 100% of the time, no matter who I'm around and what I'm saying. If I can be that safe all the time, to not need to place the needs of others before me. And that's really what kind of, and then, but even it develops as a, you give, and then that becomes an addiction. Actually, that behavior becomes an addiction of giving. So, and then you just start giving to other people, and then people go, why was I in a narcissistic relationship? Or, because they're takers, I've been there, but, how do we reclaim our power and we're also in a society that teaches that you are not valuable. It's like you have to go fill a void. And so we don't really know, like, okay, if that void is here, or there's that perceived or that perception of void, how are we going to fill that? So, go be a consumer. Go be a consumer. Go thrive off of other things. Go Snapchat, But what I realized that I have to do is, I had to change the perception in many, many different ways of, my own self-worth. And this is tying into what we first started talking about with the session that I made myself today, of like allowing myself to honor the good that I bring into this world for myself and my life. And, how do I contribute to the betterment of my life and myself? How do I love myself? If I were to be on a deserted island all by myself, would I need my Snapchat, or would I go insane? Would I need this, or would I go insane? And it's kind of interesting because here we are in these little seclusion, pods of different, everybody's on their different little island right now. And it's like this little experiment of, and I'm like, it's like higher refinement. And then I'm like starting to notice, I'm like, oh wait, I actually love myself a whole lot. Whee! But I'm like, no, I can go hiking all by myself all the time. I could do it with other people too. I'm adaptable. But it's, a lot of people in this time, when people have that wanting to be accepted thing, we feel that it's, not a lot of people hold those going, hey, it's okay to have this perception, and it's okay for me to have this perception, and equally everything is right. But when that comes into fear, guilt, greed, or any of those emotions, that collective can really pull together until it contrasts so much against the truth of the heart. And that's what I see is happening right now, is that, people first went into panic mode and fear, but now I'm seeing the grocery stores are starting to refill their shelves. I'm starting to see people going, oh wait, this is another one of those things, or I'm all, and then later on, people are going to go, wow, I really should have done something more fun with that time off, because now I'm back to work, and now I've reshifted my energy completely based off of those subconscious routines that I put myself in, based on the perception of lack that I was living from, because I continued to give all of me away. And it was that perpetuation of that stress mechanism. And, now I can be more here, more me, more safe, and more, everybody's frequency is, a lot of people are raising up right now into their hearts. And that becomes completely, you can't deny it when people, if people are so far into fear, and then you see somebody just super duper duper like magnetic, you're like, okay, either they're on crack, or maybe it's just like Danny, who's been talking about this stuff, and Eric's been talking stuff for years, and and maybe there's some truth to that. And this is what got me into meditating to begin with, is because I was living a life of absolute chaos, and I wanted to kill myself, and started looking around. I was like, wait, who's doing okay? It seems like everybody else is doing okay. It seems like the monks are doing okay, Buddhists are doing okay. We're doing not doing.
Oh, you there? Hello, Danny. Danny. You there, Danny? Are you there? Well, oh, there you are. Okay.
Oh, now it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, we have a real pipeline moment. Um, I wanted to kind of go. I wanted to go back and touch on something that maybe what you're describing is. I might I might describe it as when someone gives. Giving is a beautiful thing. Giving can be given out of an entanglement, or out of a formulaic giving that entangles it with a formula of self-worth that is inherently uh, low grade. It's lovely that people try to give. I think
Absolutely.
trying to give is one of the best things that people can reach for, but there is a moment when it does not need to be entangled with self-worth in the same way, because I was trying to think of like a metaphor. It's like when imagine uh imagine trying to run your car by opening the hood and running a fan belt from the engine out over the side of the car, and then wrapping it around your wheel, and then trying to use that to make the car go forward.
Right.
It's like this very strange architecture that is not the most efficient way. It doesn't really honor the power of what the car can do and is designed to do,
Absolutely.
because it's jury rigged. It's like you're and when you're giving because you feel like things will go badly if you won't give, or that giving is the only way you can value yourself, then it's nice because it does get the car moving, but at some point it's very exhausting and energetically depleting, because
Yeah.
the giving can just feel beautiful. The giving can be out of an expression of a unified consciousness, or recognition of the other person in yourself, or or it can be an expression of your abundance and your caring nature. But when it's got these weird little fan belts that kind of go into, well, if I don't, I'm a crappy person, then the entanglement it wears you out. It's like driving down the
Absolutely.
highway.
Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but then when you actually recognize that, when you stand in your true worth, like you're the worth that your spirit knows about you, the worth that your spirit recognizes in you, and you operate from there. It's like you actually have access to the gearbox. Like you can actually connect the engine directly to the axles of the wheel, and that car can go. And at the same time, giving becomes this abundant thing. It's like uh, you can feel when it's appropriate, and you can feel when it's not. You can feel when you want to
Absolutely.
give, and you can feel when it's detrimental. Um,
Absolutely. I think, a big important part of that
and I,
is, oh, sorry, I keep
all of
interrupting you.
California.
What?
I was going to say, did all of California just wake up all of a sudden? It go
Well,
online. It's like the pipes just got clogged.
really. So, like, I think, when it comes to giving, be mindful. Are you giving while you're in a state of lack or fear? or are you giving because you are in a state of fulfillment and abundance? And I think that's, if you have food on your plate, and if you've eaten and you're nourishing yourself and you're energized and you have more to give, awesome. But there's a lot of people learning that a lot of these placing behaviors, or those patterns of self-worth in the hands of others, they're always going to be operating from a state of depletion if they're trying to give. So it continues that depletion energetically. So, if we can, one of the analogies I use is, it's like you're trying to get in a canoe and canoe from this end of the lake to the other end of the lake. And you get in the canoe and you're like, oh, there's all these holes in the bottom of it. And you're like, oh, that hole is my self-worth hole. Let's patch that one up, and let's stop giving to this person, because this person just takes anyway. So, and then, and then slowly, one by one, as you kind of notice, you start patching the holes in your canoe, and then you can actually like start, paddling to get to the other side and whatnot. So Bruce Lipton has a great video called it's on energy and money. And he talks about the scientifics of this, because if you don't take care of your body first, you will actually start to move into those behavioral aspects of those lack perceptions or poverty consciousness, in terms of, healing from a state of I'm not enough. And so this is where we go into the nurse practitioners and doctors right now, because a lot of that system is entirely not built upon doing that. It's about numbers game and money, and so where there's a lot of depletion, and physician suicide is the highest in the world. So it's like, all this different stuff's going on. There's obviously some things that are not accurate that need to be adjusted and rewired, because it's just not, it's not sustainable.
What's happening
But
now?
if people want sustainability, what's that?
There's a lot of rewiring happening right now. I can see.
Oh yeah. And I've been told that I'm not allowed to be quiet anymore.
Like you ever were.
Well, I know. I'm always talking.
I had a really great conversation with Matthew McCarthy yesterday, and we were talking about compassion, and he said something that I loved. He was talking about how there's a moment where a person needs to find the mental fulfillment of taking care of themselves. And then there's a moment when to truly wake up that compassion is, this is in my words, it's almost like the graduate course becomes in compassion. Like once you've stabilized yourself, you know how to take care of yourself, you know how to maybe act outside of entanglement. And just be clear, entanglement is when you're running a formula like, if I do this for this person, they'll like me. If I drive them anywhere they ask, then they'll be my friend. And these are these formulaic entanglements that we get ourselves kind of constricted into. And it's important to graduate from those, where it's like, I'm a good person. I know I'm valuable in people's lives. I know that I'm a loving, caring individual, and I want to drive the person somewhere today because they need it. Or no, I don't want to drive someone today because I'm tired, even though they need it. Right. And that's a nice equanimity to meet. And then he was kind of talking about how that next level is that compassion. It is that recognition that if someone is hungry, that it is me hungry. It is an aspect of myself hungry. It's that the next level of spiritual fulfillment comes from that expression of compassion. That was kind of an interesting thing to hear. I've heard a little bit of that from Amma as well. Amma, in one of her sessions, said she gives everything. She'll hug people for a day and a half or 2 days. And she said, if someone comes up to you and asks you for something, just give it to them. And I argued with her for years in my head with that concept of like, well, sometimes it's unloving to the self to just give all the time just because someone wants it. And it's definitely like it's a it's something I'm trying to feel my way through. I think there is a really beautiful answer there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but it's also like, what's your definition of giving? And I think that different, like we all give differently. Alma's a hugger.
yeah.
You know, I'm good with a
And,
couple.
and a,
I love hugs, but I have to be selective with them. It's not that I hate people. I'm a very generous person in different ways,
yeah.
and that was one of the beliefs that I had to work through this year, is that I was feeling like I was comparing myself to other people. And that has stopped, based on what I'm able to give and what other people give, and what I give is completely different than what other people give. And the way that I can give it is completely different than other people give. And the same that you can give. And so that's what I think is, there's this aspect of compassion. And, for me, I know that me being in my heart, by living in integrity and being a good person, that is giving, because I've given my life to dedicating myself to getting into my heart, to, being in that space of just being a naturally loving person, to where I'm always giving, where anybody, I had a client yesterday, we just started talking about her dreams, and she's like, why am I experiencing vertigo? And she started wobbling, and I'm like, well, I kind of woke up super duper empowered today, but when this goes into Heart Math Institute and like the electromagnetic field of the heart, a person that holds or is in their heart is able to have an amplified electromagnetic field within their heart. And so anybody who comes into your field is actually naturally able to process and release more so of what they would be normally. Okay. And so in ways of, you look at these big healers, people who are known to do miracle healing and whatnot, the first thing that I think of is like, how are they more in their hearts? Or, I've chosen to not give away. I know that was awkward, like right after I said, but I've prioritized my life to not give away to things that that are wasteful. And it becomes very apparent when I give to wasteful things. So if my belief is that things and material objects are my happiness, that's not going to allow my heart to be as full as it would otherwise. So, because I want to know that my self-worth is based on the value that I am and the value that I'm becoming and wanting to be. So this is really confusing. Eric, did you leave me? So, but we all have the choice of prioritizing what we want to give our love and attention to. And if we don't include our own selves, then we may notice our lives being a little bit imbalanced in different ways. And so, my thing that I would recommend to people is, how do you want to prioritize yourself in your life in your life and show up, and how do you want to prioritize that all? Because my priorities used to be cocaine, meth, and whiskey. It's not anymore. I prefer hiking and vegetables and joy. So, and with that, I know that joy and that love is able to help lift a whole lot of other people up, especially when people are in such states of fear and worry and trying to seek. So I don't know, you kind of left and then left, but I kept talking. I have no idea what's going on. Are you there? Are you frozen? So I think we're totally jacking up the interwebs. And are you there? Hello.
I'm having some serious internet problems.
Yeah,
Just
I
yeah, can
know.
you hear me?
I can now.
Uh,
Should we take care of ourselves and revisit at a different
the
time?
internet's slowing to a crawl.
Yeah,
Woo.
I know. Maybe it's
Danny,
it's because
we may have to wrap it up because it doesn't seem it's not getting any better, I don't think.
yeah, no, I agree. And it's because you're so sexy.
Okay.
It's because you're sexy.
Yeah, yeah. But it's good. I think this is a good place. We can kind of wrap for now and then come back.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's go with the flow. All right. I love you, Eric. I'll talk to you soon.
Right.